Peace. Um, my share yesterday about the senior trip to Boston, and that particular experience, I feel it was a positive experience. It taught me about how my childhood abuse had strengthened me to be available for someone else. Um, I couldn't. I couldn't tolerate abuse in my own life, and um, I couldn't tolerate witnessing abuse, and finding my voice, figuratively finding my voice, finding my backbone, and and the way that particular incident unraveled. Um, I would have to say it was a mutually positive experience. This experience that I'm about to share was not so positive. I've mentioned in other shares that um, I have an addictive personality, but I've been sober. I've been sober for quite a while now. Roughly 2001, with a brief relapse in 2006, but clean and sober. And I engaged in AA, and wholeheartedly, but I engaged past tense. I equate AA in my experience. I'm not saying anything for anybody else, but in my experience, it was very beneficial. I'm not taking anything away from that. I'm sober today. I had that journey, but I got to a certain point in my awareness that on some level I had switched. It was like going from Catholicism and Jehovah's Witness and Baptist, and I even studied some of the Eastern religions, and then come into AA, and I ultimately I ended up finding it to be uh, just another religion, and that's why, and it became distasteful to me. Um, but in that experience, many of us are, at least in a third party sense, we're familiar with AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. There is a particular, and I did engage with this program too, the Augustine Fellowship, which is like, when you think of AA, the 12 steps and whatever. The Augustine Fellowship deals with, it's very AA based, and it's this like the same book, the same big book, but they deal with sex and sexuality, sexual addiction, people who might, oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Somebody who's addicted to sex. And I engaged in that program for a while too. But again, just it, I don't want to badmouth it. It's not a question. It just, in my experience, it came to my awareness that I was just switching religions. But in that program, um, once you've reached, a certain, 90 days, let's say, or a year or whatever, you start talking, you start sharing at meetings, and you're the one at the top of the, at the head table, at the podium or whatever, and you share your experience, your strength, and your hope. And there, in a generic way, a lot of, and a lot of folks that are alcoholic, whatever, we all have different paths, and why we picked up a drink and why we became addicted in the first place. But I remember, um, and it was pretty distasteful to some people. But it was what I mean is, and I didn't get into graphic detail, but I definitely alluded to my childhood abuse as I was telling my story. It would come out sometimes, and other times it wouldn't. But there, the aspects, certain aspects that I was abused as a child, and that once I found alcohol, it was like it really gave me a sense of peace and calm. I could be comfortable in my own skin. But a lot of people, that's not their experience with alcohol. It might have been something emotional, something to do with their parents, something, whatever, whatever, whatever. And but I always knew that if and or when I would speak, and if and or when I might express my childhood abuse being one of the precursors to my addictive behaviors, drugs and alcohol, I knew that there was going to be some level of backlash in that meeting or in the days to follow, that this isn't appropriate. Well, it's not appropriate for me to discuss that, but it's okay for you to discuss all the times that pitiful, incomprehensible demoralization of waking up in somebody else, your best friend's wife's bed. You can talk about all this other bullshit like it's a fucking badge of honor. And I can't mention the fact that the precursors to my pitiful, incomprehensible demoralization was stemming from childhood abuse. Where is this going? I miss her. I miss her. And oh boy, I oh boy, I had a friend in AA. Wow, you guys, deep breaths. I had a friend in AA. Ooh, wow. I miss my friend. There, there was an occasion, this one particular occasion, where I shared, and my friend, this woman who would become my friend, young girl, very young girl. I was probably at the time, I don't know, I got sober when I was 35. I'm a few years in. I was probably 40 at the time, and she was probably in her late 20s, something like that. Anyway, there was this one particular meeting where I had shared, and I had alluded to some of the reasons why I became an alcoholic, and I brought up the topic of abuse, and whatever. And a lot of times after a meeting, the speaker will be approached by certain people, and they might offer support and encouragement, or oh, wow, what you said was really profound and it touched me, it moved me, or whatever, whatever, whatever. And those moments where you can really feel a connection with somebody, or you've made a connection, or something that you've said was valid in somebody else's healing, through addiction. And this very just it was one of those, another profound moment where do I say her name? Yeah, Christie. Christie. After the meeting, and it wasn't immediate. It was like there was a couple days had passed, And I, again, because it was around my anniversary of my sobriety date, that's also another thing. Like around your anniversary of your sobriety date, you might find yourself speaking at more than one different meeting in different areas. And being in the area that you're in, people travel to different meetings. And sure enough, Christie, there was another meeting, and I was sharing again, and she pulled me aside very timidly, very, very, you know, hey, Scott, can I talk to you? And I was, of course, absolutely. And what a beautiful young lady. And she's like, yeah, I heard, I was listening to your message the other day, when you shared, when you spoke at that AA meeting, and I was wondering if maybe you and I could talk. Absolutely. And I gave her my phone number, and um, and I wouldn't recommend this in all particular cases, but there are times I had two sponsors. I had a male sponsor and a female sponsor. And depending on the things that I was experiencing and outworking, sometimes my male sponsor was the go-to guy, and sometimes depending on what I was experiencing, my female sponsor was the go-to lady. And depending, and in that light of me offering her my phone number, um, people would frown on that, guys with guys and girls with girls, whatever. And, I'm of the mindset, fuck you, you work your program, keep your eyes off of mine. Don't do, but she had enough courage, to her credit, to approach me, a guy, um, come in later conversations to, uh, me being the guy who represented her, who perhaps represented a father figure, older brother figure, and yeah, anyway, I offered her my phone number, and she called. She called, to her credit. Courage, man, courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's seeing the fear and walking through it, holding your head up. I see you. So whatever fear she had, she walked through it. And I was like, fuck yeah. As a guy, I can remember, moments. That moment on the bus, man. When I stood up to that guy, I was shaking in my boots. I was like, oh shit, am I going to have to fight this guy? He's twice my size. I'm going to get my ass beat. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's walking through it. And she called, anyway, amazing, amazing young lady. And this is hard, you guys. This is hard. And she called me, and we had, like, what I, and I don't mean date, like romantic date. But we had like coffee dates out in public, a coffee shop, and we'd find a corner table out, out on the patio somewhere where we could have a moment of, where we would be undisturbed, and there would be a level of privacy. And I don't know, probably, I don't know, maybe we met a dozen times, let's say. And every time we met, she would open up a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more about her experience. And I knew right from the get go, because it was something to do with my abuse triggering something in her. And I don't mean triggering like a hugely negative. She wanted to outwork some shit and get a different perspective, get a perspective from me as a guy. And there were, and she slowly began to express very slowly what her abuse had been. And her abuse was deeply sexual, and it was with her dad, her biological father, mom and dad. Outwardly, there was that picture that the family projects, the mom and the dad and the daughters and the family, and it's this wonderful family. You see the family photo, the professional family photo on top of the black Steinway piano in the middle of this lush living room, and right behind that picture is the shadow of what's really going on in that household. And there was some deep, deep trauma that she had expressed at the hands of her biological father. And when she came out within her family, and not the collateral damage, but because when she came out and said basically, dad is sexually abusing me, the family unit fell apart. There was divorce, there was court, there was this, there was that. It was just it was a very chaotic thing, and she was held responsible for that. She, the victim. It's the victim's fault that the family unit fell apart. It's her dad that's sexually abusing her, and she was blamed for it. And I understand. I'm not saying I agree with it, but I understand like how that would happen. This fucked up world that we're in. Blame the victim. Unbelievable. But through that experience with her, she was deeply troubled, deeply troubled. She wanted so badly to understand and to heal and to process and to forgive and um, have the life that she never knew she wanted, to experience the joy and the bliss and the ecstasy and beauty and grace and strength that the world does have to offer. And this experience, it was like a double whammy, man, being abused and then being blamed for the dissolution of the family unit that she was in, because she came out and expressed her trauma. And we continued to speak for quite a while. And it's funny because it's funny, not funny, haha. I her Facebook page is still up, and it's interesting because the anniversary of she committed suicide. Fucking hell, man. It was funny because I remember the group of friends that she was, wonderful people, wonderful friends that she had, and very supportive. And um, but it was like Christie had two lives. She had two lives. She had the life she had with her friends, and then this kind of secretive life that she had with me as her sponsor ish. I don't even like using that word. It doesn't feel right. She was my friend, man. She was my friend. And like she had two lives, the life she had with her friends in her age group, and then the friendship she had with me. And it wasn't all bad stuff. Like, it wasn't like every time she and I talked that it was something dense and negative. She shared her joys. And um, there was I remember her. There was a boy boy, whatever. There was a guy that she was interested in. She had the biggest crush on him, boy. And she would express that to me. And I'm like, oh, hey. Maybe that's what's waiting there for you, but don't sell yourself short. You know, yeah, he is a nice guy, and I knew the guy that she was interested in, but don't sell yourself short. He was a good guy, but hey, Christy, maybe you can do better than that. Maybe you can find somebody you're even more aligned with. Oh boy, but that like I feel very fortunate to have had that time to share with her. Um, yeah, this is tough, you guys. I feel myself deflecting. I totally feel myself deflecting. Just say it, Scott. So we had this ongoing. I'll use the word mentorship. Friendship, mentorship, and it was ongoing. For probably a solid year, and all of a sudden a month passed. No phone calls, no responses to phone calls or messages, and through social media, this is how I fucking found out that Christie, on Facebook, that Christie, some of her friends posted something, and it came up on Facebook that Christie was dead. That's how I found out, and the pain, you know, it hurt. It hurt that she. It hurt that she never reached out. You know, it hurt. It hurt, and at the end when she when she finally made her decision, and I'm not being flippant when I say this, but that line from Shawshank Redemption, get busy living or get busy dying, you know, and that moment in her grief, feeling completely overwhelmed that, and I can imagine what that was like for her, that her only option at that point was she was like, from her point of view, maybe she felt like this abuse that I experienced and whatever, this is never going to pass. This is never going to change. Um, and the only way, my only option at this point for her was to exit. And many of us have some dogmatic beliefs, and you can take those dogmatic beliefs about what you believe about suicide, and you can go watch somebody else's channel. Um, but there's my presumption, or my deep feeling, excuse me, my deep feeling about suicide is that somebody has just reached their limit, and they can no longer participate in this dimension, and they opt out and they exit. It's hurtful to the people that are here, but it's hurtful more often than not because of our own backgrounds and beliefs and what we've been taught about, you know, what we've been taught about suicide. And this was it was painful. It was painful that I understand why she did what she did. I do. I completely understand. I completely understand. She was very forthcoming, and through the course of our interaction, she expressed virtually, maybe she amalgamated her experiences, but she told, and I'm like, oh, this poor girl, this poor girl. Um, and but I do recall like just that agonizing sadness, and that she never reached out. Like, she had made her decision and she never reached out. She never said goodbye. She never there was no inclination. Yeah, she withdrew, but she had done similar things prior in the course of our interactions. Giving her space, but little did I know that she, and it was a surprise and a shock to everybody. She didn't tell anybody. She made up her mind and she was going to do what she was going to do. Ooh, that fucking hurts. That hurts. Feeling it. Ooh. Um, but it's not about me, and it's not about her wonderful friends. The anger that I felt toward her, that all those things, all those emotions, even now that I'm feeling, has to do with me. You hurt me by leaving. That's not what it's about. It's about understanding and appreciating and honoring her memory and why she chose to exit. And I understand. I do. But unlike this experience that I had on the bus, where I would consider that, you know, that experience on the bus, where I would consider that experience a success, there's an aspect of this experience with Christie that I'm not, there's a certain word that I'm going to use or not use, because I don't even want to, this learning experience about how what we do have control over ourselves, and what we don't have control over others. The only thing I have control over is me. I can offer myself to someone on some level, um, but it's them that has to make choices for their own life, living from their own intuition. My capture is going to end, um, but not all of our interactions are, shall we say, fruitful, or fruitful in a way that is, in our understanding, there's a deeper story and a deeper learning here that I am unfolding. This was like 5-6 years ago. This is quite a while ago, um, and it's still unfolding. Capture is going to end. Peace, it surpasses all understanding. If you are in a position where you're considering a permanent solution to a temporary problem, please feel free to reach out. Maybe we can work this out together and find an answer or solution. And much love, peace, it surpasses all understanding. My email will be in the description box. Have a wonderful day.